Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
It's our life unit, and we're talking about electrical safety tips for the winter. Of course, right now it's in the middle of winter. It's kind of cold out there, and of course, lots of people don't like to be cold. I know I don't like to be cold myself, so sometimes I turn on the heater to warm myself up, or I wear extra clothes. But it can be dangerous if you're using electrical appliances to make yourself warm. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I use a space heater for my feet. I'm usually not very cold in the winter here. I love to be cold. So I love winter in Taiwan. And my apartment stays relatively warm, I must say. But sometimes my feet get a little cool. So if I'm at my desk writing or, doing some work, I'll often put the space heater on. But you have to be careful. We've got some great safety tips for you to keep you safe and prevent some of those fire hazards that are out there. Right now, though, we're going to read through today's lesson.
As the weather gets colder, many of us rely heavily on electric heaters, electric blankets, and other appliances to stay warm. While these devices provide comfort, they also pose significant fire hazards. According to fire department statistics, winter is the peak season for electrical fires. Therefore, understanding proper appliance usage is crucial. Extension cords, a common household item, can be dangerous when misused. Connecting multiple extension cords to a single outlet or operating multiple high-powered appliances simultaneously can overload the circuit, increasing the risk of fire. To prevent this, avoid these practices and plug high-powered appliances like heaters and hairdryers directly into wall outlets. Moreover, many people leave their appliances plugged in even when they are not using them. This habit can be a fire hazard, as dust and lint can accumulate around plugged-in appliances. If water comes into contact with these accumulations, it can cause a short circuit and spark flames. Therefore, it's advisable to unplug appliances when they're not being used and to keep the area around the outlets clean. Additionally, in winter, many people use electric heaters to stay warm or even to dry clothes. However, flammable materials should not be placed near these high-temperature appliances to avoid fire risks. For example, do not cover electric heaters directly with clothes. When using an electric heater at night, maintain a safe distance from it to ensure safety and prevent burns. Finally, ensure that all your electric appliances have the commodity inspection mark issued by the government. This mark indicates that the appliance has passed safety inspections. By following these simple guidelines, you can enjoy a warm and safe winter. Okay, everybody, it's time for us to talk about the contents of today's lesson. We're talking about winter electrical safety tips. Electrical means having to do with electricity, things that use electrical power to work, like space heaters and washing machines and refrigerators. They're all electrical appliances. Don't confuse that with electronic. And that means there are circuits and things like that. You'll have electronics, say, in your smartphone or other kinds of devices like that. But we're talking about electrical safety tips having to do with electricity. And here in the first paragraph it says, as the weather gets colder, many of us rely heavily on electric heaters, electric blankets, and other appliances to stay warm. Actually, electric blankets sounds like a cool idea.
I had one of those.
Yeah, I haven't had one of those since I was a kid. And gee, that might make a difference here in Taiwan, having an electric blanket. But while the quilt I have warms up pretty quickly, it takes a while for your body heat to generate enough heat inside the quilt. So I don't think I really need an electric blanket. But if you're out and about, if you're sitting at your desk working on your computer, you might want to consider using an electric heater.
I know I mentioned I use a space heater for my feet, and this term electric heater is the same thing. So a space heater just means you've got a smaller space. It's usually not for the entire apartment or the whole room. Mine is just for a little area. Although my apartment is so small that my space heater heats it up pretty well if I just have it on, fall day or something like that. So we've got these different types of appliances. We use appliances to talk about things, especially that we use in our kitchens, like dishwashers, a washing machine, a toaster, an oven. Those are appliances that we buy that make our lives a little easier. So some of these things like electric blankets, those could keep you warm. Tom, I think you should try one. I know your quilts work really well, but an electric blanket is immediately warm, and it would make your feet feel better. I know your feet get cold.
Indeed, they do. I guess because I'm fairly tall and my feet are kind of far away from my heart, so they get colder kind of quickly. But yes, a space heater may do the trick in that case. And while these devices provide comfort, they also pose significant fire hazards. So here we've got the word pose. That means they present or they offer this or they will give us this fire hazard. So we got to watch out for that. They give us this potential hazard regarding fire. So yes, they do provide comfort. They can warm us up, but they're also kind of risky. They're kind of dangerous because they might pose some fire hazards. A hazard, of course, is something dangerous, something harmful. We could talk about the hazards of smoking, for example. If you smoke cigarettes, you might get lung cancer or emphysema or various other diseases like that. And yes, we have fire hazards, which means these devices could actually overheat and cause a fire, and we don't want that.
Even though it's not a vocab word for us, I wanted to mention we'll often hear pose used with questions. Oh, the reporter posed a question. Just means you ask a question. And again, if it's posing some sort of problem, it's causing it. It's the cause of that danger or problem. So you got to be looking out for fire hazards or fire risks. I think you could put risks there or dangers. You could put that in as a substitute for hazards as well. Now, according to fire department statistics, we get the real facts and figures from the fire department itself, and they say that winter is the peak season for electrical fires, which makes sense. People are trying to stay warm. A lot of older people, maybe they don't have a lot of money and they're using candles for light, or maybe we've got somebody who's smoking and forgets to put that cigarette out before they go to sleep. That can cause a fire. So winter is a dangerous time. If it's a peak season, it's the highest season. It's when something, some sort of activity is at its peak or the highest all year round. The peak season for snow sports would be in the winter. The peak season, I think, for tourism in Taiwan should be the fall. That's when we have our best weather, I think.
Sure, it's the best time to come. But if you're here in the winter, it's the peak season for electrical fires, according to fire department statistics. So fire departments put out fires and they compile statistics, and they seem to think that most of these electrical fires occur during the winter. Therefore, understanding proper appliance usage is critical. So here we've got the word usage. That just refers to the action of using something. And so we're talking about basically when you use those appliances, when you use those space heaters, understanding them and how to use them properly is crucial. It's very important. If you don't use them properly, you could cause a fire.
Now, moving on to the next paragraph, it says, extension cords, a common household item, can be dangerous when misused, when used incorrectly. Extension means you're making something longer or wider. It could be you're making time longer, or you could be making some sort of item actually longer in length. I have an extension wire. I guess it's a cord too. It's not this, though. It's not the extension cord you're thinking of. I use it for recording because my earphones sometimes are too short to plug in to a console that we use so I can hear my voice and the engineer at the same time. That's an extension wire, an extension cord. But these are the kind that have little sockets in them, and you can plug in several appliances or devices at the same time. I have several of these in my apartment. I use them all the time. I don't have enough sockets in the wall that I can use.
Right. Okay. For me, an extension cord just has one plug in it only. That's what I learned when I was a kid. Maybe two, but nowadays we tend to use those power strips with all the different plugs and the little buttons that you can use to turn them on and turn them off. And so those extension cords are common, and they can be dangerous if you don't use them properly. Connecting multiple extension cords to a single outlet or operating multiple high-powered appliances simultaneously can overload the circuit.
Tom, I think they are referring to those power strips.
Oh, they are, as
by calling them
cords.
extension cords.
Yeah, they didn't have them when I was a kid, so we learned the word extension cord. So maybe that's just me. But yeah, an extension cord could be anything that allows you to extend the distance from which your appliance is from the plug in the wall. So yeah, power strip, extension cord, they're basically the same thing. And yes, if you have too many plugs in them to a single outlet, or if you have all those high-powered appliances operating from those extension cords simultaneously, then it can overload the circuit. Okay, simultaneously means happening at the same time. So you have a heater, you have a washing machine, you have a refrigerator. Those all use a lot of power, so they're high-powered appliances. And if you have them plugged in at the same time simultaneously, it can get really hot and it can overload the circuit. To overload just means there's too much stuff in a small space.
Sometimes it will automatically shut down the electricity in your apartment, and other times it can start a fire, so you have to be really careful. Now, to prevent this or avoid this, you need to stop doing these following practices. You need to stop it and plug high-powered appliances like heaters. Heaters use a lot of electricity, and so do hair dryers, ladies, especially. I think ladies use the hair dryers more than the men, but men out there are using hair dryers too. Those use a lot of electricity. I noticed in the summer I can't run my air conditioner and use my hair dryer at the same time. In my apartment, I don't have a good wiring system, I don't think, but it will shut down the electricity in my apartment. So you need to be careful and try to plug these high-powered appliances directly into the wall outlets. I was calling them sockets. The socket is the actual two-pronged holes that you see that plug goes into. So yeah, those are wall outlets. So my apartment doesn't have many wall outlets, so I've had to kind of make up for that by buying those power strips or extension cords.
I did also want to mention that a hair dryer can also be called a blow dryer. I think that's what most people use these days. And come to think of it, I don't think I've used a blow dryer or a hair dryer since I was in university.
Oh, really?
It just simply hasn't been necessary. Again, as you said, hair dryers or blow dryers are used primarily by the ladies. Okay, we're at the midway point in today's lesson. Let's take a break, but stay tuned. We'll be right back. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
大家好，我是派老师。今天讲解的是 Unit7。冬天到了，有很多听众朋友可能也会在家里开暖气保暖。不过，根据消防单位所公布的统计资料，在冬天因为电器使用不当而发生的火灾特别多。这个单元的课文告诉读者一些预防电器火灾的准则。好，我们一起来看学习重点吧。首先看到第一个句子 As the weather gets colder。 好，天气越变越冷，那怎么样呢？我们会使用 electric heaters， 那就是暖气 electric blankets 电毯 and other appliances， 那请同学把 appliances 画起来，那就我们讲的家电，还会使用其他的家电产品，目的是什么？ To stay warm。 好，再来我们看到第二个句子，那使用这些产品的时候会怎么样？ They also pose significant fire hazards。 请同学把 pose 跟 hazards 画起来，这是词语搭配，它们也会构成一些火警的危险来源。再来，我们请看到第三个句子，请同学看到 Winter is the peak season for electrical fires。 那我们知道电器使用不当会引发火灾，那在冬天的时候特别容易看到这样子的情况。 Peak season 请画起来，这里同学就不要翻译成旺季了。你在讲旅游观光的时候可以说旺季，讲到火灾可不要说旺季，我们说 好发的季节，就是在冬天的时候呢，特别容易看到电器火灾。再来，我们看到第2段的第1个句子 ，extension cords 是主词，延长线 can be dangerous， 那可能呢会构成很大的危险。怎么说 ？When misuse， 这里是一个副词子句的省略，由于主词都是一样，是 when they are misused， 那这个 they 当然指的就是 extension cords。那我们在做了省略以后，就会变成这样 when misuse， 使用不当的时候，延长线会造成火灾，很危险。那再来呢，我们请看到第2个句子，在 can 这个助动词后面的动词 overload the circuit。那你这么做呢，可能会让整个电路超载 ，overload 指的就是超载。那再来，我们看到第3个句子 ，to prevent this， 那我们想要避免前面所说的这个风险，该怎么做呢 ？Avoid these practices。这虽然英文用的是 practices， 那请同学注意，就是不要有以上的这些做法 practices， 那所指的就是不要有以上所说的这些做法。
We're going to take a short break now, but please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, guys. It's our life unit, and we're here with safety tips for you, which I think are really essential, vital, good things to learn about, especially in English if you decide to go study abroad, or maybe you get a job working abroad. You want to be able to express yourself. If you have some issues in the place you're living that have to do with electrical safety or the wiring in your apartment. And we talked about how as the weather gets colder, a lot of us are using things like electric heaters or blankets and other appliances to stay warm, especially when it gets a little chilly. Around, I would say the end of January, it gets a little colder here. I don't think Taiwan's that cold in the winter, but we have a couple of days when it goes, to 12 degrees Celsius or maybe even 8 degrees. Woohoo! I get so excited when it gets cold. But if you're using these devices and you're not being responsible, or maybe you've got some old cords, got to be careful with those. Those old cords sometimes can start a fire without your knowledge. You have to be aware of your equipment. Sometimes it's good just to buy a few new extension cords just to be on the safe side.
Right. So we talked about some problems regarding these appliances that you might use during the winter. So we mentioned the possibility of overloading the circuit, and moreover, or besides that, in addition to what we just said, many people leave their appliances plugged in even when they are not using them. So this is probably very difficult to convince people not to do because, my goodness, isn't that a hassle? If you leave the apartment to go to work or school, you got to remember to unplug all the appliances. That is a big hassle. Who wants to do that?
Do you do that?
No, I don't. But my wife tells me to turn off the little light buttons on the power strips. That might be the same thing. And that's actually good advice there. But it's a habit you have to remember along with other things. And yes, indeed, don't leave those plugged in because various problems can occur as a result of that.
Yeah, and if you live in an apartment building, you need to be responsible for your neighbors, right? You want your neighbors to be safe and to practice safety tips. So you need to do the same. We need to help each other out that way. I had a fire in my apartment about 10 years ago, and it affected all of us because of the smoke damage. So just be aware of the things that you need to be careful about and the safety hazards, or fire hazards, I should say, and take care of each other that way. So moving on, it says, moreover, it says, people leave their appliances plugged in. I do that. I must confess, I leave mine plugged in, even when they're not using them, except for my kitchen appliances. I'll unplug those. They're bigger. So you might want to think about that, especially before you leave the apartment or even go to sleep at night, if you can make sure everything's safe before you turn out the lights. This habit can be a fire hazard if you keep things plugged in because, here's the reason, dust and lint can accumulate around plugged-in appliances. Dust, we know what that is. Lint is little fibers of fabric that come off from cloth sometimes. If you're sweeping around your apartment, you'll see little I don't know, they're very wispy, wispy little things of lint. We used to have lint in our dryers after we used our dryers, but I don't use a dryer here. I hang up my clothes after I wash them. But this stuff can actually cause that electrical circuit. If it comes into contact with it, it will cause a flame to start, and that then leads to a fire. So you got to be careful.
Right. So you got the dust and you got the lint, and they can accumulate around plugged-in appliances. So to accumulate here just means to gather together from a larger space into a smaller space. So yeah, you can get dust in the plugs there and lint as well, and that could actually be a fire hazard. And if water comes into contact with these accumulations, it can cause a short circuit and spark flames. Now again, we've got the verb to accumulate, which means to gather together. When I was growing up in the United States, it would snow during the winter, so snow would accumulate on the ground, and then you'd have to go out and shovel the snow so that you could walk on the sidewalk. And here, accumulation is the noun form. I would often hear this on news reports. Oh, there will be an accumulation of snow of up to 6 inches. That means you were getting a lot of snow. But here we're talking about all the accumulation of this dust and lint, and that could cause a short circuit if the water comes into contact with the dust and the lint, and it could spark flames. Flames could start flaming up, and you could start a big fire. Your bed might catch on fire.
Scary. So if water comes into contact with these accumulations, that's the noun form of the verb to accumulate, it can cause that short circuit and spark flames, as Tom said. Therefore, this is our advice here, it's advisable to unplug appliances when they're not being used and to keep the area around the outlets clean. Although one time, Tom, I wanted to clean those outlets, those wall outlets, because they were looking a little dirty in the kitchen, from the fumes and the oil and whatever. And I started washing it, and I got shocked.
Oh.
And it broke the circuit, so I had to have it repaired.
That is dumb.
Be careful. Yeah, don't use water around them.
Yeah, don't use water around electric sockets.
Yeah, the wall outlets.
It's just asking for trouble there. But in any case, yes, don't let water come into contact with the accumulation of dust and lint because it might cause a fire. So keep those areas clean and don't clean them with water. Use a cloth or something like that.
Yeah, like Stephanie did. So additionally, in winter, many people use electric heaters, that's me, to stay warm or even to dry clothes. However, flammable materials should not be placed near these high-temperature appliances to avoid fire risks. Some people will mistakenly put clothing on an electric heater.
My goodness.
Yeah, drape it over. That's crazy, guys. It could start a fire that way. Flammable means something that is prone or easily it's prone to starting a fire. It burns easily. If you look at little infant clothing or clothing for children or blankets for children, it'll often say flammable or not flammable, non-flammable. Those are the things that you need to look for. So don't be doing that. For example, don't cover electric heaters directly with clothes. I just said that. Don't do it. When using an electric heater all at night, which most of us do when it gets cold, maintain a safe distance from it to ensure safety and prevent burns. Ensure just means to make sure. So to ensure, although you can't just replace them, you can say from it to make sure safety and prevent burns. That's incorrect grammar.
It would be tempting if you've been outside in the cold to sit right in front of that heater to warm up quickly, but you need to maintain a safe distance because you might start a fire if you get too close to those little elements inside, those little red strips inside these heaters there. They could start a fire.
Oh, I wanted to give them an example, though, Tom.
Sure.
If you use make sure, you would say maintain a safe distance from it to make sure you're safe and you prevent burns. So you can't use a noun after to make sure. That's important. Go on. Last final paragraph.
Yeah, here's the final paragraph. Let's go on. It says, finally, ensure or guarantee that all your electric appliances have the commodity inspection mark issued by the government. So yes, the products here in Taiwan need to be inspected by the government to make sure they're safe. And this is called the commodity inspection mark. I can't really think of what it looks like right now, but I do know that it is on all electric appliances here. They need to have that in order to be sold in stores. A commodity is just any product that can be bought or sold on the market. And inspection just refers to the process of looking at something to make sure it's okay. And a person who does that is an inspector. So you might be a government inspector and you give your okay to the product. It's okay, it's safe, and then it will have this commodity inspection mark on it.
Yeah, we often have marks on different products that tell us some important information. So this mark indicates that the appliance has passed safety inspections. You want to make sure you have that, but that's not a guarantee, folks. Sometimes there are mistakes that are made, or sometimes products, when they first are made, they're just what I call lemons. A lemon is a bad product from the time it was first born or put together. It's a lemon. I once had a computer that was a lemon.
Oh, no.
From the time I bought it, it was just a crappy, bad computer. So be careful. I know that there might be a mark of having passed safety inspections, but you need to do your own inspections as well, especially if you're dealing with flammable or materials that might be flammable around children. By following these simple guidelines that we talked about during this lesson, you can enjoy a warm and safe winter, and that's what we're hoping for everyone, as our Chinese teacher is as well. And our Chinese teacher has some more tips. Hang on.
再来，我们看到第3段的第一个句子 Moreover, many people leave their appliances plugged in. 请同学把 leave 跟 plugged in 画起来。Leave 在这里呢，所指的并不是遗留，而是让什么东西处于什么状态。好，那有很多人呢，他会让电器处于什么样子的状态呢？ Plugged in 就是一直保持呢是插在插座上的，就算没有在使用的时候呢，他们还是一样插头没有拔起来。再来，我们看到第3个句子，那如果不小心插着插座的这些电器啊，它如果呢怎么样啊？上面这个插孔啊有很多有的没有的东西，灰尘啊什么，就容易造成 it can cause a short circuit， 容易造成短路。short circuit 指的就是短路 ，and spark flames。spark 就是引爆，那可能呢就会引爆出火焰来 flames。再来，请同学看到第4个句子。Therefore, it's advisable to 好，请同学把 it's advisable to 画起来。这个是当我们在委婉告诉人家你最好怎么做的时候呢，那我们不要说最好，就我们建议你怎么做。对 ，it's advisable to， 请同学把它画起来。那再来，请看到第4段的第2个句子。However, flammable materials should not be placed。有一些易燃物千万不要放在这些电器，尤其是高温的电器旁边啊。好，那再来这个 flammable， 就我们刚刚讲它是容易点燃易燃的材料 flammable。那再来呢，我们看到第4个句子 We're using an electric heater at night。 好，我们晚上呢在使用电暖气的时候，有件事要特别注意 maintain a safe distance，要保持安全的距离，如果人靠得太近，会发生什么事？容易烫伤嘛。所以我们这么做，目的是在后面的不定词片语 to ensure safety， 要确保安全 and prevent burns， 那防止呢我们会被电器烫伤，被这个电暖气烫伤。那再来第5段，总之啊，我们在购买电器的时候呢，也要特别的小心。Ensure that all your electric appliances 要确保所有的电子产品，这些电器产品 have the commodity inspection mark， 就是我们所讲的商品检验标章。这 commodity 所指的就是商品。 那才有安全的保障。好，最后看到第3个句子 By following these simple guidelines 前面已经告诉我们很多预防电器火灾的做法了。那如果我们遵从这些指引的话 Following these simple guidelines Follow guidelines 词语搭配，请同学特别注意遵循指引 Follow guidelines。以上就是我们针对预防冬天电器使用不当发生火灾，那该怎么做？以上就是我们的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
That's all the time we have, guys. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you have a very safe and warm winter, and your feet are toasty and very, very comfortable. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.